Hello everyone, Violet here, and today we're going to look at the Gemini new moon energy, which is upcoming actually a week from now when this video is going to go out. The Gemini new moon is going to be in about a week, so that gives us some time to sort of sink into what it is we want our intentions to be, what we want our practices to be at that time. And we're going to be doing a special spread. This is not the spread. This is leading up to the spread, so I'll tell you about this in a second. But we're going to be doing a special spread for this Gemini new moon. I'm going to do it here today as a collective reading, and we're going to be doing a live stream on Friday where you can order this individually for yourself. So this reading we're gonna do is actually, I think, one that would be very beneficial to get individually, because it talks about conflicting parts of ourselves and how we might kind of like cover up one part of ourselves because the other maybe is more accepted. It's talking about how we are complex beings with lots of facets to us and lots of layers, and how actually looking at ourselves as a whole and accepting all of those different parts of ourselves might create this like special essence that only we have, or it does, not might, it does. It creates a special essence that only we have, and that tapping into that is really important for going towards our dreams, for really knowing who we are, etc., etc. So we're gonna read it collectively, which I think is gonna be really interesting. We're just gonna tap into that collective psyche a little bit. But I do think that this would be a good reading to get individually. So that'll be available on Friday. Turn on your notification bell. I can't wait. Okay, so it's interesting because I wasn't sure exactly the direction I wanted to take this reading, and you heard a little bit about what I want to do with it, but I got to that point by pulling a spread on Gemini and on this new moon, simply for what direction should I go in for our special new moon readings. So I feel like that's like, it's just so funny. Like, have you ever pulled tarot to figure out what to pull tarot on? Maybe there's something to that. How many times can we do that? But anyway, I thought that was pretty funny. But it was cool because we came out, and we actually did this live on stream. We came out with these two cards that I think this kind of encompasses some Gemini energy. This encompasses some Mercury energy, which Mercury is ruled by Gemini. And we actually talked about how this is kind of an extension, and I think these readings are going to be this way actually, an extension from the previous reading. So we had the Sagittarius full moon, and this was our main card we focused on for that time, which is about our direction. And in this reading with the Nine of Chalices in reverse and the Tower in reverse, it kind of felt like, perhaps dreams, or perhaps like things we haven't embodied about ourselves fully, that are part of our true essence, maybe due to fear, maybe due to past rejection. That's how this is feeling. And I think very much this is going to have a lot to do with how we relate to others and relate to the world. So yeah, the spread that I designed, which I'm about to pull for, and you will see, it is actually inspired by the shape of a mantra meditation that I did yesterday in my yoga class. And the meditation was, if I remember it correctly, Hummy Hum Brahm Hum. And the meaning of it was like finding unity, like coming together. And that felt important for thinking about these different facets of ourselves and all of that. So the motion with this meditation was this. So the spread is based off of that. All right, I'm gonna pull the cards. Let's get into it. All right, so our cards are pulled. We have a bunch of tarot cards, but as you can see, they're making that shape. And then we're going to kind of sew it up down the middle with some hummingbird wisdom cards, which I feel like are beautiful messengers for this element of air, but also to do with the subject matter of this. I think that they'll have kind of a light and lovely message, because some of this might feel a little bit heavy. So this section is our most like internal contradictions collectively, and how we need to be able to sit with both sides and say both can be true, you know, in order to really like sit with ourselves. And then up here, this has more to do with society and how society kind of splits itself. We'll talk about that. And then down here, this is how we might be splitting our like sort of being pulled in two different directions, especially in terms of our journey and our path. So, okay, so let's get into it. Let's start with society as a whole. It's interesting because we have a page and then we have an ace, and the ace is in reverse. And I kind of felt this as like two pulls in two different directions. So yes, and with the page and with the ace, it also feels to me with these cards that in reality, we are in a state of not knowing. We're in a state of forgetfulness. I think that this point in humanity and with the earth is so dense and so material, and we're stepping into that regaining of our spiritual selves and our spiritual understanding. A lot of it is remembrance. But I think just accepting that a lot of what splits society apart is ignorance. It's not remembering, it's not knowing, and we're all kind of in this state together. So perhaps that, you know, that could be a message here, is just like understanding that we all don't have a full grasp on what's going on, and we don't have the full picture, and we all probably have pieces of information and pieces of understanding and pieces of remembering, but we just simply, you know, we're in a state where we just don't know. And these two like ways of being makes a lot of sense to me. This one is swords and this one is wands. So we kind of have this air and this fire energy pulling in different directions. So the swords energy might be more logical, more scientific, more in a way kind of assuming that it's right, perhaps, more intellectual. And this also feels like an energy that's kind of able to argue its point and you know, almost weave its own understanding. Like as a page, it kind of feels like I'm now creating my own understanding of things while also being a student, so like learning from those who've come before, but like also creating my own understanding, but it's from a very mental, from a very logical place, right? And then this other energy, which is this more so downwards force of fire, of wands, this kind of feels more like our drive, our emotional drive, our survival drive as well. So maybe it's in a state of defense, of like wanting to stay safe. So maybe this is kind of more of like being in a state of adrenaline, fight or flight, and very much pulled by our emotions, and maybe even to the point where it could get the better of us. Like we're not being as logical because we're being so emotional, but in a fiery sense. So maybe it's kind of like let's create, I don't know if it's exactly like let's create change, but like let's do something, but the something that's done is gonna maybe even be its own undoing. Do you know what I mean? And these just feel like two different forces in society that kind of pull people apart and split them in different ways. And you might notice that you actually kind of fall into either one in different areas of your life. Once again, things aren't black and white, but I see this as being those two forces. So that's very interesting. That has to do with society. And I'm thinking before getting into the internal stuff, maybe talking about the two paths and how we might be split in different directions. once again as a collective reading. But it was interesting because both of these came up reversed. We have the Three of Swords in reverse and the Wheel of Fortune in reverse. And I almost wonder if it's like, it almost feels to me like instead of it being pulled in two directions, it's almost like we're being repelled into a different direction. Like we're being repelled away from something. It's like these are magnets turned to the negative side, so that instead of saying like, oh yeah, there are two different things that pull us, maybe this is a little bit more what this is going to be, our internal, like, you know, what's pulling us internally. But this is more so like we are trying to stay away from, and again, this might come from sort of that fear mindset. We're going to stay away from two different things that we are fearful of. It's the unknown and we're fearful of it. With the Three of Swords, this feels to me like rejection. We are repelled away from something that maybe we would want to go down, or a part of us would want to go down, because of a fear of rejection, or a fear of like losing something that we love, or a fear of hurting a certain relationship. And maybe these will make more sense after looking at the internal stuff. But do let me know. Also, I forgot to say hello to everyone watching this as a premiere, and also everyone watching it later. If any of this resonates with you, like specifically, it's collective, so take what resonates and leave what doesn't. But please feel free to put it in the chat, put it in the comments. I'd love to hear all about it. But yeah, this feels like a moving away, or a sort of being repelled by the fear of rejection, or the fear of disappointing someone too. The first thing that came to mind is like, you know, like the parent wound, like, hey, we are, you know, perhaps our parents expect something of us, and we're kind of repelled by doing something that our heart is actually sending us to, because we don't want to hurt them, we don't want to disappoint them. But this can show up in so many, this is like kind of reverberate through our lives in different ways. It's going to show up differently for different people. And the Wheel of Fate in reverse kind of feels to me like almost like a fear of being insignificant. Like, what if I went down the path that I desire, but it actually doesn't matter? Like, what if I did put all of my effort into something, but it was insignificant? And maybe it's easier to just kind of stay away from that, because then I'm not failing. So it almost feels like a failure of my purpose, or a realization that I actually like don't have a purpose. You know what I mean? I think that actually something in here is going to get into that too a little bit. So that's what I'm feeling with this one. And I think that these are both two forces that, instead of pulling us in different directions, it's almost like it's pushing us away from something. That's how I feel about those. And as we get into sort of the more internal focus, I'll start here because this feels most related to this one. The King of Coins. All right, so I want to remind you that this is about parts of ourselves that maybe we tend to reject one and move towards the other for whatever reason. But both can be true, you know, and both can be felt in its own way, or maybe they create a new truth, if that makes sense. So the King of Coins feels like we are all powerful. We are so significant. We are everything. Do you know what I mean? It feels like it holds that energy. And then simultaneously, with the Seven of Swords reversed, it almost feels like, what does it matter? I'm a tiny blip. What I say doesn't make a difference. I can't make a difference. It doesn't feel true, but it also feels like there's a way to kind of hold both truths. Like there's a way to feel like you are powerful and you're significant, but at the same time, you aren't, it's like when you look at something grand, like a mountain range or an ocean or the stars, and you feel very small but in that smallness, it opens you up to something larger within you. So I hope that I'm making sense with this, but it's like both can exist within you. We can see ourselves for this grain of sand in this incredible mandala artwork. And then we can also find that mandala is within our grain of sand. It's all contained within us. You know what I mean? So it's like both can be there. That's how those felt to me. This top one, the 8 of Swords and the 10 of Wands. This almost feels like I can't do what I want. I'm kind of stuck in some way. And then also I have too much to do. There's too much. And it feels to me like in a small way that I experience this in life, and let me know if you relate to this. But when I feel like I have a whole lot that I need to tend to, I have a whole lot on my to-do list, I can barely keep it in my head, I also feel totally stuck and totally blocked, and I don't have the inspiration to do those things, and I almost shut down, and then I don't do anything at all. So this almost feels like a manner of being. At least that's how I've experienced it. But I think it comes from a seed. It must come from a seed within, a feeling like it's almost like I can't, but I must. I feel like I haven't fully uncovered what that, the full meaning of this yet. I can't, but I must. This almost feels connected across here to this as well. I have all of the responsibilities, and then nothing that I do matters. You know what I mean? I'm putting things in negative terms, but I think that since these things are split apart within us, they feel like negative parts of ourselves. And this might be part of our self-rejection too. It's these two halves of myself, since they're split, feel negative. But then if they came together, perhaps it would feel inspiring and empowering. And I do have hummingbird cards to hopefully stitch these things together, so we'll see. But I am thinking here, how would these come together? I almost wonder if it's like an acceptance of I can stop and I can go. Just because I rest or I am in stillness doesn't mean that I'm not tending to my garden, and I'm not taking care of the things I need to take care of. And maybe it's in not beating myself up in this state, but rather seeing it as a necessary moment in the cycle and in the pattern, then I still have energy to go and take care of each of these stars that I want to. Do you know what I mean? But since it's I'm tearing myself up about this, I can't then have the energy to take care of this. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this was also very interesting to me. This came through pretty strong. So we have our 9 of Chalices again. It showed up. And I think that this is about, living out our dreams, doing what we love, doing what our heart calls us to do. However, with the Sun in reverse, just because it's what our heart calls us to do and what we love, it is not always enjoyable. So realization that, me following my dream might be stressful. I might not want to do it on a certain given day. Maybe even a lot of times I have to kind of push myself to do it, even though it should be also what I desire and what I want to do. So I think in stitching these together, once again, we'll see what the hummingbird says, but I feel like if we've really connected to our heart and we know that, we have a certain calling and we're doing what we love and what makes us feel fulfilled and whole, that perhaps we can also get through those bad days or those difficulties or those big challenges that show up and kind of test our willingness to remain in our truth and on our path. And once again, both of these can be true. This can be something that I love, and I also might not enjoy it a lot of the time. I feel this so strongly, so hopefully that isn't too specific. Hopefully this can resonate on a universal level, depending on what it is, that you're doing. Doesn't just mean like, for your job or whatever, but just your, what is fulfilling you in your life? What do you feel fulfilled by? And I think that if we just always went towards pleasure and went towards what, in the moment makes us feel the best and feel happy, well, that might be more so like this path here. And it might stray us away from what our intention is, what we've determined our intention is. You know what I mean? And so similarly, if we also lock ourselves into like a label and we don't listen to our heart and we just say, I am this because everyone else has told me I am this, then we're missing it. It's like we need to be able to balance both. I really hope that this is making sense. Let's see what our hummingbird cards have to say. This first one is going to be referring to more so the societal splitting of these two forces. And it says, joyous nectar, fill up on the sweetness of life. And I think this is telling us to be in the moment with each other and to have compassion and to be kind, even if we're coming from totally different places, and just kind of realizing, like, it almost has this childlike innocence of like, what, we are kind of like children right now. We don't really know what it is that we are, none of us really have a clear picture of exactly why we're here and what we're supposed to do, but we're doing the best that we can, hopefully, with what we have. And we will be doing better if we're also nurturing towards each other and, willing to come together so that we can also have conversations and kind of sort through some of these opposing forces and energies that might take us in different directions, but both directions have intention to like be doing what's right, hopefully, on some level. So that's what I'm feeling with this. In terms of all of this internal energy we were talking about, what we have is bouquets of blessings. Your broken wings are mending. Relax and know that you are receiving a miraculous gift of healing. So it feels like all of those parts we were talking about are almost like shattered pieces and parts of ourselves. Because they, seem to contradict ourselves. Once again, maybe we reject certain parts of ourselves at certain times, or we allow other people to say, like, you are this and you're just that. And this is about mending those parts, healing that shattering, bringing it back together. And what is it that we're healing? In this, it's our wings. Like from stitching all of these parts together, now we have wings that we can use to fly. And bouquet of blessings, now that we can fly, we can experience more of the blessings that this life might have to offer for us. So, but it first comes with acknowledging, like, I have been shattered, or I have shattered parts of myself. I've rejected parts of myself. So how can these things piece together? What wisdom can I gain without rejecting what I might have labeled as negative? What can I look at it, and instead, what can I say, like, how have I learned from this? Where does this come from? And how does that relate to me as a whole? You know what I mean? Okay. So in terms of, being pushed into different directions and kind of, not being sure, like, how we should be what it is that we really should be doing, we have pollination, and it says, pay attention to new thoughts and ideas, as they are seeds that will soon blossom into fulfilling opportunities and projects. And this word is pollination. And this actually makes me think of a nature message that I'm about to be sending out to all of the Patreon and Ko-fi supporters and subscribers and members. And that message does have to do with seeds, actually. And it's about like allowing yourself to kind of do the things as you feel called to do them, without, stripping away these fears of it not working out, of it being insignificant or it being rejected, but instead do it anyway, and just know that not every seed grows into something, and accepting that. Like if a flower, if a tree is releasing its seeds, it's like the focus is on releasing those little bits of truth, those ideas, whatever it might be, and seeing what takes hold. And then what takes hold within you, you nurture that. But you don't mourn the things that don't take hold. Rather, you could try again, send out another seed, or you can focus on the ones that are growing. But you're not defining your success by if every seed you put out grows. And maybe this can release some of this pressure off of ourselves too. So there we have it. It's interesting that I really do think this reading was a continuation of that direction message, which I'm actually very surprised that it worked out that way. Obviously, it's about in pulling ourselves together and accepting all of the complex facets of ourselves, we're able to find more clearly our directions, plural perhaps, and I think that since the new moon is a wonderful time for nurturing, it's about, to me, it feels like going within and nurturing those parts of ourselves and kind of beginning that healing process, and realizing that this is going to expand out, and this is going to affect how we relate to others. It's going to affect how, we relate to the energies in the world, and how we are able to speak to others and be with others. And it's going to affect, obviously, the directions we go in life as well. So yeah, let me know what you think. I hope that you enjoyed this reading, and I hope you can see what I mean too about how this would be really also good to delve into individually. So if you are interested in that, that will be happening on Friday. That is the plan. And happy upcoming new moon. Do let me know in the comments what you resonated with, and I hope that you have a wonderful week.